Hi everyone, my name is Tejas Chopra. I am a senior software engineer at Netflix. Today I'll be talking about DevOps at Netflix. It's an honor to be presenting today at this Positive Technologies Summit. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there in person, but I would still love to share our learnings with you. The agenda for the talk is as follows. I'll go over a brief description about my work at Netflix. I'll talk about Netflix. I'll run through the journey of how DevOps has evolved. And then I will talk about the culture at Netflix that multiplies the impact of our DevOps thought process. And finally, some questions that you may have on it. I'm a senior software engineer at Netflix. I work on the cloud infrastructure for Netflix Studios, as well as the machine learning platform group at Netflix. My job includes building storage and transfer services that help studios create movies. I'm also a co-founder at GoEB1, a thought leadership platform for immigrants. I have experience working at companies like Box, Apple, Cadence, Samsung. I'm a TEDx speaker, and I talk about blockchain, cloud, and distributed systems. I'm also an adjunct professor for software development at the University of Advancing Technology in Arizona. At Netflix, our goal is to win moments of truth. This is how our architecture stands today. We have compute and storage running almost entirely off AWS. We started using third-party content distribution networks, such as Akamai, to distribute our content around the world, but soon realized that we would best be served by having our own CDNs instead. So we wrote code and we open sourced it. And today it is called Netflix Open Connect. When we think about the scale at which Netflix operates, we have more than 220 million members. More than 190 countries are served by us. We have thousands of microservices, thousands of daily production changes, tens of thousands of virtual machine instances, hundreds of thousands of customer interactions per second, billions of time series metrics that we collect, tens of billions of hours of content that we stream every quarter. And we do that with tens of operations engineers and no network operation center. Someone took a stab at understanding how these microservices call each other in the Netflix ecosystem, and they came up with this graph. There is no single person right now in Netflix who understands this. We have so many microservices that are constantly interacting with each other to give you a delightful experience as a customer. In order to do that, we had to take a step back and think about what our team's culture and its translation to DevOps would mean. So what is DevOps? Let us understand the chronology. Initially, we had the waterfall model, then came the agile, and currently we have the DevOps model. Waterfall model is a more traditional approach of software development. In the waterfall model, the development happens in a step-by-step manner. So you have requirement analysis, design, development, testing, and maintenance. Client requirements cannot be understood at once. So in some ways, when you're doing requirement analysis, you have to understand what the client requires. But as we all know, in software, requirements keep changing. Our clients themselves do not know what they want most of the times. So in this model, it is very rigid to go back and change something once the client has a change in their mind. It is very expensive to do that just because you have to start back at the top and complete one process, then go to the next one, then go to the next one. And today, we understand that software needs to be delivered faster than ever before and with lesser resources. So then came the next evolution of developing and releasing software. This is the agile process. The entire process of building software is broken into small actionable items or actionable blocks that are called sprints. Here, as you can see, within each sprint, you do all of the things that you do in a waterfall model. So you plan, code, test, and review. And then once you have a deliverable from a sprint, you move on to the next sprint. So this is what agile practices mean. In the workflow of a typical agile model is you have a product backlog, you do some sprint planning, you then create from the product backlog a sprint backlog, which is all the things that you want to accomplish in this sprint. Then through the process of the sprint, which is either 2 weeks or 4 weeks, depending on your team, you plan, you code, you test, and you review. And this is an iterative process. Once you're done with all of these sprints, then finally, at the end of all of the sprints, you will have a deliverable product and product review. Now, this model works great in some cases. The advantages are that the client requirements are better understood because there is a loop, a feedback loop that we have in Agile. And product is delivered much faster compared to waterfall model. However, there are disadvantages as well. The product gets tested only on the developers' machines and not on production systems. Developers and operations team operate in silos in this case. And this is what DevOps tries to solve for. DevOps is an evolution from the agile model of development. So in agile, you have client and their requirements and the developers that have closer interaction. However, there is no gap. The gap between the developers and the operations is not addressed by agile. And that's what DevOps tries to address. According to DevOps practices, the workflow in software is divided into 8 phases. We'll go over a brief introduction to what these phases are. So in the planning stage, the owners and the software development team discuss project goals and create a plan. And then programmers design and code the application, where you use tools like Git to store your application code. In the build phase, you use tools like Maven and Gradle, which take code from different repositories and combine them to build the complete application. Then comes the testing phase, and you use automated testing tools like JUnit and Selenium to ensure software quality. Once the testing is complete, you want to integrate it, and new features are integrated automatically to the already existing code base. Finally, you have packaging of applications and their deployment from the development server to the production server. Once the software is deployed, operations team will perform activities such as configuring the servers, provisioning the resources, and they use tools such as Chef, Puppet, Ansible, and monitoring. Monitoring is this constant feedback loop that allows both operations and developers to actually look at their services when they are deployed in cloud or on-premise systems. So here are some tools that are most commonly used for all the different stages. You can see here there's Git used for the coding and the planning stage, Maven and Gradle used for the build stage, JUnit for testing. For integration, you have Jenkins and Bamboo. For deployment, you use Puppet, Docker, Chef for both operations and deployment. And for monitoring, you use Splunk or Nagios. So how do we, as a Netflix, how do we do DevOps? We don't. We don't do DevOps in the traditional sense. We don't have systems that say no to our engineers and developers. There are no push windows. Everyone has full access to production environment. We don't take time to build systems or have procedures or policies that prevent people from pushing their code. What we do instead iterate on is freedom and responsibility. One of our goals at Netflix is to hire smart people and get out of their way. If I hire someone who is good at what they do and is intelligent, then they need to have the freedom to solve the problems in the way they see best. We look for people that take responsibility and do not wait for it to be given to them. We do not optimize for uptime at all costs. There are some companies and organizations for which uptime at all costs is very important. These are typically companies in healthcare or finance. The repercussions of downtime are very different. We instead price the velocity of innovation. We want the smart engineers that we hire to find new ways of delighting our customers. And Netflix as an organization understands that in order to do so, we would have to trade some of the uptime for it. It is not that uptime is not important. It's just that it is not our first priority. It is keeping our engineers doing fun and interesting and exciting things for millions of our customers. It is difficult to have a fast-moving organization filled with people solving interesting problems to have someone build guardrails that are appropriate. That is a very bureaucratic way of thinking. One of the functions of bureaucracies is to take that bureaucratic machine and plug in virtually any cog and get the output that the bureaucracy wants. That is not what we are doing. And so we don't index on processes and procedures to a large degree. We instead believe in trust. We work very hard to find people that are not from the bureaucratic machine mold. We want them to question how we do things. We want them to challenge us and suggest newer ways of doing things. So we trust the people that we hire. That's why we do not have access. We do not have issues giving access to everyone in production. Someone may say that, oh, someone can just shut the production down. Well, it has never happened. We don't force people to use a particular language, framework, or IDE. Today in Netflix, we use a lot of JVM languages, and microservices are written using Spring Boot, Kotlin, Python. I work on a file system that was written in C++ and some amount of Go. There's lots of Rust and Scala and Node as well. What we focus on is enablement. We have a dedicated team in Netflix that enables other software engineers to work on their software and develop using the best tools available. If we feel that there are many teams that require some common libraries, for example, for alerting or for logging, then we have a separate team take care of building the plugins that are required in order to serve those platforms to them. Now, if you're going out of the paved path, and let's say the integrations are developed only for Java, but you're using C++, it is upon you as an engineer to take a call, whether you want to build the integration or the client library for C++ for that service, or whether you want to move to a service that is supported or a language that is supported by that service. So in some ways, we focus a lot on enabling our engineers to focus a lot on developing the software that delights their customers. We do not have traditional operational fences where an operation engineering group sits behind a fence over which code is thrown in the hopes that it will show up in production one day. So we do not have silos and walls and fences between developers and operations engineer. Every engineer at Netflix is a DevOps engineer. When we hire, we make it explicitly clear that we believe in making ownership very easy. You build it, you run it. If I write my code, it is my responsibility to deploy it to production, manage the cluster groups, the ASGs, select the right size of the machines, and then manage and monitor it. Spinnaker is one of the tools that we have open sourced, and it makes it easy for developers to put their services in cloud. We do not rely on guesses and gut instinct and tradition. We instead rely on data. Netflix is an enormous data company. We have 2.5 billion time series metrics, and this is just operational data. A vast majority of our decisions are based out of data. Netflix started streaming in the year 2007, and in 2008, there was a fire in a data center. So we had a decision to make. We could have done data centers and found people to do it. But if our job is to win those moments of truth, being great at running data centers will not get us there. So we worked with partners like AWS to do undifferentiated heavy lifting. We much rather have them do it and build it. So we moved to cloud. In 2015, we finished our entire transition to cloud. We look at what people watch and enjoy, so we are able to produce the kind of stories people like. Today, when you go into Netflix, as a profile owner, all of the tiles that you see in Netflix, they are specially designed for you. We use machine learning models and train our models based on the input data received from your viewing history and impression history. So if you're someone like me who likes a lot of sunshine and likes like bright colors, then most of the tiles will have colors that are bright and have sunshine. If you like a particular actor, then you would see most movies by that actor, or even the screenshots will have that actor in them. This is how we leverage data to build our services and systems. So we are an enormous data-driven and decision-driven company, and we spend a lot of money investing in data and algorithms. So in some ways, we do not do DevOps the traditional way, but we do believe in having that imbibed as part of our culture. We want to understand the way we all think about things is the way you think about things as well. We value our culture very highly, and we believe that the result of a Netflix culture looks a lot like DevOps. DevOps is a result of a healthy culture and a healthy thinking. If whatever I said today, if nothing applies to where you work, then you do not really have a DevOps problem. You have a culture problem. And I think we've come a long way as Netflix to develop where we are right now. And the best part is we continue to evolve our culture. So it's not something that's set in stone. We look at the people that we have hired, and it's an evolution process for any company. So a flavor of DevOps for me, I worked on something called as Netflix Drive, which is an edge software that runs on different machines and nodes. And so it's built to run on OS X, Windows, and CentOS. For CI/CD, we use Jenkins and Spinnaker, and we run Mac VM instances on AWS. For deployments, Brew and PKG on macOS, Yum on CentOS, and Chocolatey packages on Windows. We use Sentry for logging, and we have in-house tools for metrics and observability. This is how Spinnaker looks, just to show you folks the advantage of having a platform like Spinnaker for DevOps. Here you can see that you have different types of accounts, regions, stacks, and you have different machines that are deployed with different code versions and build numbers. You also can see you have a production, a dev, and an integration test environment. And you can look at your branches, your builds, your pipelines, you can set properties, and you can also configure the ownership for these different applications. That's my time. Thank you so much. Please feel free to connect with me using my QR code. Again, it's an honor to be presenting to you all as part of Positive Technology Summit. Thank you.